Tonight on Ukraine Today. Bloody Russian crime. Occupiers drop an air bomb on the village of Yarova in the Donetsk region. More than 20 people were killed, all of them civilians. Air defense shortage. Financial Times reports that the United States slowed down weapons supply because of the threat from China. The Ukrainian strikes. In the temporarily occupied Donetsk, a Russian base was hit. On the footage, you can see rockets that look like Ukrainian flamingo. On the edge of a global disaster, the water level in the cooling pond at Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Plant is dangerously close to the critical mark. All this and more right now. Hello, my name is Volodymyr Robchun. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and let's get to the news. Let's begin with a Russian war crime committed just a few hours ago. Occupiers drop an air bomb on the village of Yarova in the Donetsk region. More than 20 people were killed, dozens wounded. These were civilians who came to collect their pensions. We'll return to Russian war crimes later. For now, let's move to temporarily occupied Donetsk. Ukrainian cruise missiles hit the territory of the former Putin'S plant. According to SINT analysts, Russian troops and military equipment were spotted there many times. And take a close look at these frames. They really look like Ukrainian flamingo missiles in action. Ukrainian intelligence special forces attacked enemy air defense systems in temporarily occupied Crimea. At least 2 Russian radars were destroyed. Units of the drone forces struck a Russian oil pumping station named Vtorovo. It supplied diesel to the Moscow fuel pipeline. As a result, the facility was heavily damaged. In Russia, a military base was attacked, home to occupiers who committed war crimes in the Kyiv region. There are confirmed dead. Ukraine's intelligence reports this was Unit 6912, the separate battalion of the Russian National Guard from Khabarovsk. 2 explosive devices went off in the parking area. In the last 24 hours, Russia lost at least 950 soldiers killed and wounded. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, that's already 1,090,010 troops. Also, Ukrainian defense forces destroyed 1 Russian tank, 3 armored vehicles, 32 artillery systems, and many more enemy gear. And now, back to Russian war crimes. Occupiers are using chemical weapons in Ukraine. Here are the details.
The number of Russian units actively using banned chemical weapons against Ukrainian soldiers is growing. Cases of use are already numbering in the tens of thousands.
I was surprised to hear that since the start of the full-scale invasion in 2022, Russia has carried out more than 9,000 attacks using chemical weapons against Ukrainian forces. That's significant. And since intelligence reports indicate that the use is becoming more intense, this is a major cause for concern. This shows that Russia wants to inflict as much pain and suffering as possible to force Ukraine to surrender.
We're talking about a documented case of these grenades with poisonous chemical agents being used by soldiers of the 114th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade. Its soldiers dropped chemical grenades into the shelters of Ukrainian Ahim defenders. In addition, servicemen from the 136th Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Armed Forces of the occupying country have been identified. These poisonous substances are also being used by members of the Russian National Guard.
By the way, a few years ago, the Russian dictator himself boasted that Russia had gotten rid of all its chemical weapons. But as usual, he lied.
A historic event. Because today, the very last remaining chemical munition from Russia's extensive chemical weapons arsenals will be completely and utterly destroyed, marking a significant historical moment. Without any unnecessary pomp, it can be said that this is truly a historic event. I mean the truly enormous and vast stockpile of highly dangerous chemical weapons that we inherited from the Soviet era. A legacy of a bygone time which, according to numerous and highly respected experts in the field, possessed the catastrophic potential to have utterly destroyed all forms of life on Earth not just once, but several times over. A truly terrifying prospect. This is a truly significant and monumental step toward making our complex modern world considerably more balanced, equitable, and inherently safer for all.
The most common grenade is the RGVO. According to the results of their analysis, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine stated that it contains not just tear gas, but a real poison capable of killing a person.
In front of us is an RGVO grenade. It was manufactured in May of 2023. This is a hand grenade, and the substance inside is poisonous. What exactly is the substance here? It's chloroacetophenone, a combat toxic agent from the group of lacrimators, or tear gases. Speaking from my own experience, we were standing about 40 meters away and still felt its effects. It's a very powerful thing.
Approximately 70 drops of this gas are enough to kill an adult. Chloroacetophenone is completely banned by the Geneva Protocol. This fact may indicate the preservation of facilities for producing even more deadly poisonous substances, which violates the obligations undertaken by Russia.
The RGVU is produced by the National Research Institute of Applied Chemistry in the Moscow region, whose management apparently takes pride in their illegal developments.
We survived only thanks to civilian products, making all sorts of firecrackers, fireworks, and so on. We made a lot of different things. But now our priority is, after all, government contracts. And the key issue, the main task of the enterprise, I think this applies to any defense company, is to create the most advanced weapon systems for the Russian army.
We are talking about the deliberate violation by Russian occupation forces of international norms and rules of warfare, and accordingly the complete disregard for the rules of international conventions, first and foremost the Geneva Convention prohibiting the use of chemical weapons.
Sergiev Posad has been struck several times already, after which there was an impressive detonation of the weapons produced there. But the institute did not stop its work.
That's the kind of mushroom cloud that's forming. There was some kind of explosion, and now this mushroom cloud, the cloud is growing. Oh, how frightening.
One of our most valuable assets is that we have our own testing range. Well, you probably know the raspberry fields, where Gremyachi is. That's where our range is, almost 600 hectares. That's it. It saves us in the sense that we have a very short time from developing a product to testing it. Usually, everyone else has to travel very far away, to Domgus and so on. That means you have to spend a lot of time, transport the products, but for us here, this allows us to resolve issues very quickly and efficiently.
Moreover, even Russian television has reported on the war crimes committed by its own army.
Here, you can clearly observe the distinctive gas mask that was prominently hanging on the machine gunner, and also the accompanying ammunition boxes. Here is the gas grenade that we dropped.
There have been about 2,500 recorded cases of Ukrainian servicemen seeking medical attention with symptoms of chemical poisoning of varying severity.
Meanwhile, the Russian Foreign Ministry resorted to its usual wordplay, claiming that it is Ukraine staging provocations in order to, as always, blame Russia.
The possibility is not ruled out that another anti-Russian provocation involving the use of Western-made toxic substances will be staged in order to then launch a new campaign in UN bodies and global media accusing our country of allegedly deliberate use of chemical weapons.
But the Russian authorities can only lie to their own citizens. After all, when there is both video evidence of its use and even physical samples of the banned weapons, all the chatter from Russian propaganda seems especially absurd.
Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling the truth about Russia's war. Click the link in the description to become our sponsor. And please, subscribe to the channel and hit like on this video. And by the way, share it with your friends. This really helps us grow. Thank you and glory to Ukraine. One person was killed in enemy attack on Odessa and Zaporizhzhia regions. One of the strikes was caught on a CCTV camera. This is how Russian hit on a civilian home looks like. At night, Russians shelled Kherson with artillery. They destroyed shops in the city center. For many locals, their only source of income. Luckily, there were no casualties. It has been confirmed that the Russian Iskander missile that struck Ukraine's cabinet of ministers contained components from the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan and Switzerland. Of course, also from Russia and Belarus, but that doesn't surprise anyone. According to the Ukrainian sanctions policy envoy, all the data was already shared with international partners. June and July of 2025 were the deadliest months of 3 years of full-scale war. Russian attacks increased more than 5 times since the start of the year. The Washington Post reports that in just 2 those summer months, Putin's terrorists launched 433 missiles, nearly 12,000 drones and killed 518 civilians. And Financial Times says Ukraine may be left without enough air defense systems because of delays in the US supplies. Pentagon officials point to the need to shift resources to counter the growing threat from China. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian defense forces are testing new AI-powered interceptor drones, while Russia is using new kamikaze UAVs. All the details in our report.
New technologies, new challenges, artificial intelligence, having conquered advanced gadget users, is now being actively used in warfare. Today, almost no modern drone is produced without this technology. Ukrainians, of course, are among the leading UAV designers. For example, our developers are already actively testing a new interceptor drone. The Ukrainian company Varta is working on implementing an autonomous system for detecting and tracking enemy reconnaissance UAVs and FPV drones for interceptor drones, based on artificial intelligence.
Certain components of the artificial intelligence system are indeed already being used in the war that Russia unleashed against Ukraine. Ukraine is defending itself with technologies that help save human resources, especially when it comes to time. Ukraine is defending itself by using technological components that maximize the efficiency of drones, particularly in the final meters of approach to the target when control over the device is already being lost.
It is reported that the drone will be called Varta Dozor A1 and is already in the final phase of testing. Its main task will be to destroy Russian strike UAVs, which are launched daily against peaceful cities in Ukraine.
We're talking about Geran, Yerbera, Prorodi, and other drones. Currently, overall, Russia is capable of producing and deploying 5,000 to 6,000 such drones per month. The largest attack we've seen so far involved up to 500 drones. But in order to carry out such an attack, Russia needed at least 3 to 4 days to accumulate them.
It has been stated that the Dozor A1 will be able to independently detect and destroy enemy FPV and reconnaissance UAVs even under electronic warfare conditions. This means the drone can be used directly on the front line, where there are plenty of targets for it literally every minute. After all, Russia has significantly increased its use of drones recently.
After precisely striking an enemy aircraft or an unmanned aerial vehicle, it immediately detonates, and its rapidly expanding shrapnel effectively destroys the enemy drone.
However, drone warfare, as they say, one-on-one, still allows for the possibility of a miss. No matter how hard artificial intelligence tries, some Russian drones are also equipped with countermeasures. That's why engineers are already working on improving the Dozor A1.
In the future, integration with situational awareness systems is planned, particularly with the Delta system. If this is implemented in the future, it will allow a single operator to control a group of 5 to 7 interceptors, creating the concept of the so-called small sky, an air defense segment where interceptor drones will play a key role.
Russian designers are also trying to catch up with our engineers. For example, one of the enemy's new developments is the BM-35 kamikaze drone. A video of its use in the center of Sumy recently appeared online. Our experts are currently studying the characteristics of this UAV. It is unknown what kind of warhead it can be equipped with, but the lawnmower engine and the propeller-driven system indicate that the drone does not fly far and will not be used against military targets. It was obviously developed specifically to terrorize civilians in frontline cities.
We are fighting against a dangerous, aggressive enemy who does not value human life. And we need to be very careful about the changes that are happening there. Modern equipment can exist on the territory of the Russian Federation, and Yarova can circumvent sanctions to produce prototypes. But it cannot circumvent sanctions when it comes to mass production, when there is a need to produce 1,000 units. They are demonstrating their inability to produce drones independently.
The results of the work of Ukrainian experts who studied the remains of the BM-35 at the crash site serve as confirmation of this thesis. As a result, about half of the components are of foreign origin.
The drone's design contains at least 41 foreign components, including ones from Switzerland, the USA, and Taiwan. At the same time, most of the parts come from China.
According to analysts, one of the significant levers of influence on the situation could be the tightening of US and European sanctions, as well as more thorough enforcement of existing restrictions. After all, the more Russian loopholes are closed, the fewer drones will end up flying over the heads of Ukrainians. And at the same time, it is important to develop our own technologies, so that for every new terrorist attack, the Russians receive an appropriate response.
There will be no peace in Ukraine by Christmas, and the only real tool against Russia remains more sanctions. This was stated by Italy's Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani. He also said Putin deeply disappointed Trump, who wanted to believe in the dictator's good intentions. Tajani reminded that Italy will not send its peacekeepers to Ukraine.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
The water level at Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Plant's cooling pond is close to critical. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, is already dropped to 13.4 meters. The critical mark is 12 meters. Below that, high risk of reactor overheating, fuel damage and, in the worst case, a radiation leak. In other words, occupiers are one step away from another global ecological disaster. And finally, Russia's bloody art project. The Kremlin is staging a song contest called Intervision, yes, the Russian answer to Eurovision, glorifying the war against Ukraine. Rehearsals in Moscow already prove it. Here are the details.
We once proposed this idea, our Chinese friends supported and picked it up. Let's see what comes of it.
Another attempt by the Kremlin.
After all, it is the close cultural ties and spiritual affinity of our peoples, the extensive human contact.
Russia has revived the old Soviet contest, Intervision. Everything is just the way they like it, steeped in tradition, with hatred toward Europe and Ukraine. The rehearsal has already taken place? Of course not without scandal.
Otherwise, these traditional values are already being pushed to the background on the international agenda. It's time to bring them back.
After the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russian troops, Russia was banned from participating in Eurovision. And in 2024, Putin decided to organize his own song contest.
To fully showcase their very best and most cherished musical traditions without any form of censorship whatsoever.
The supervisory board is headed by Putin's friend, Sergei Kiriyenko. The organizing committee of Intervision includes Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Chernyshenko, together with producer Gleb Shegun.
This contest has already sparked keen interest. Artists from many BRICS countries and partner nations of our alliance have confirmed their participation.
I find myself recalling the Intervision that existed back in the Soviet Union. But this will be a new, high-quality contest, a competition for the 21st century. And a great number of interested TV companies and production firms from all BRICS and CIS countries have already confirmed their participation.
India, Kazakhstan, Qatar, Kenya, China, Colombia, Cuba, Kyrgyzstan, Madagascar, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, USA, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Ethiopia, South Africa, Belarus, Venezuela, Vietnam, and Egypt. These are the countries that should be at Intervision.
Well, that's it. Let there be BRICS songs. Invitations were sent to a number of European countries as well as to the USA. Already this year, the competition will feature representatives from every continent, which clearly demonstrates the global interest in the format. Unfortunately, some countries were unable to participate due to internal reasons, lack of preparation time, and the busy schedules of their ministries.
They lured the winner with money, and the jury, not the audience vote, determines the outcome. The prize fund is 30 million rubles. In August, it became known that the USA plans to send a singer to the Russian competition. Brandon Howard will go to Moscow.
I can't wait to see you soon, friends.
Two countries refused to participate, Azerbaijan and the United Arab Emirates. They were previously announced among the contest participants. Intervedeni immediately became embroiled in scandal. Instead of an international show, it turned out to be a sham. Extras were promised 6,000 rubles for participating. The audience is being portrayed by about 800 people.
Shout, wave the Russian flags, raise them up. Russian flags. Why aren't there any Russian flags?
The extras, who are Russians, were given costumes of foreigners. They're pretending to be Arabs, Indians, Brazilians, and Serbs. They were told to cheer louder than the Eurovision audience. The organizers assess people by their appearance and then assign them to a suitable country.
The day before, in the group where the extras are, the organizers announced that all participants had passed a security check. Before filming began, they signed a contract. According to it, the extras were obliged not to discredit the Russian army during the contest recording and not to display any Nazi or extremist symbols.
Participants were forbidden to wear clothing in yellow and blue tones. Ukraine was not to be mentioned anywhere.
The organizers told the extras that their task was to portray the friendship of nations. The extras were asked to cheer for all the contestants with equal enthusiasm, hug their neighbors, blow kisses to the camera, and make heart shapes with their hands.
The import-substituted music contest will take place on September 20th at Life Arena.
The bar has now been set very high for all the other participating countries. We're sending the most popular artists in the country to this contest. Just imagine how incredibly hard everyone else will genuinely have to try, with their carefully considered selection of choices, to even begin to reach this truly exceptional level of achievement.
Russia will be represented at the contest by the singer Shaman, of course. The song for the Putin supporter was written by one of Putin's favorites, Max Fadev. And as for how Shaman was chosen to represent Russia, it was by a completely unknown foundation called the Traditions of Art. Shaman stated that Leps and Mizulina will be supporting him at the song contest.
Katyusha will be supporting me. My parents, they're pretty anxious people. Maybe they'll be supporting me from the other side of the screen.
One thing is clear, Yaroslav Dronov is the kind of figure who will definitely push the agenda and make headlines in foreign newspapers. And that's exactly what the Kremlin wants. And
I would especially, of course, like to thank our esteemed President Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. Because it was thanks to the decree he signed to hold such a large-scale contest, let's give a separate round of applause for that.
Once again, Russia under Putin tried to show its greatness, and once again it turned out to be a fake. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine views this event as a tool of hostile propaganda and a means of whitewashing the aggressive policies of the Russian Federation.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. Strength to Ukraine's defenders. Glory to Ukraine. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share. See you next time.